All right, and we are live. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our May 18th baseline show where we have Daniel Norkin from Envision Blockchain Solutions, a very familiar face in the community. He's been around since the inception, but officially on our show as a guest today. So we'll be talking all about what Envision is up to, the original days of baseline with Envision involved, and all other topics happening in the space right now. So first, I'll hand over to you, Daniel, to give an intro on yourself and Envision for those of us who are unfamiliar.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sonal, and pleasure to be on here. Kind of like I commented in the baseline Slack chat. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Been involved in the baseline community. From I won't say from the very start, because there were people that had developed the thought and put the time and energy into baseline before it was officially open source, but Envision was part of the open source launching, if you will. So definitely happy to talk about the past, present, and future. For those that don't know about Envision Blockchain, we are a application development organization that focuses in the Web3 space. So we help out customers on all different levels of their journey in Web3, whether it's from ideation all the way through design, proof of concept, and obviously scaled deployment. So happy to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And with that, can you give us some more information about what Envision did do in the early days? I know you were involved in Radish 34 and some other things.
Yes, I mean, as a system integrator, we always gravitated to the idea of baseline, because our entire business model is not to create the new protocols, is not to create our own IP, but rather help organizations adopt technology that exists out there and help literally integrate systems or to create something new out there. So when we first joined the baseline community, we were doing a lot of education around it, because I think that the concept of what baseline stands for is something that's extremely relevant, right? It's like people use blockchain or think about blockchain like a major database, right? And we all know that there's issues to go with that. So the fact that the baseline pattern has all sorts of different technologies like zero knowledge proofs and smart contracts and message brokers and all sorts of things that work together to kind of add that level of privacy and kind of I don't know, like a level of maturity to this emerging technology really attracted us. So from education, we were also involved in some of the early demos. So Envision Blockchain was the organization that put together the demo for Dynamics 365 back in the day, us as a Microsoft Gold partner. So that was kind of our end to the community. We work together with the Provide folks and the Unibright folks and Consensus as well to go ahead and put together some of the early demos. We also, I remember that I was the kind of the I don't know, leader or presenter of the Baseline Summit education track, where I think that there's a YouTube video of me probably talking for like 72 hours straight. So heavy on the education side in the early days for sure. I know that Envision was also, I won't say that we played a heavy hand in the early parts of the standards organizations, but I know that, we were there for the early conversations as well. So, just we stopped, we stopped paying attention to it after the first maybe month or 2 months of the standards organization. But as I was looking around, I think that you guys actually launched with that standard, right?
I was going to leave that to Andreas, but it is going through its ratification process right now.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
exciting.
the standards one, yeah.
Yeah.
It is, well, it would be going through the ratification process if there were a ratification process defined. There is none yet. The PGB is working on it to do that, and that is those are immensely pleasurable calls to be a part of.
Listen, Rome wasn't built in a day, or it probably wasn't built in a year either, and when we're talking about a standard, it's not something that's so, willy-nilly, right? You just can't just go ahead and do it.
Oh, standard is done. That's not the content's done. It's like
Getting it
how do you get
approved.
the content? How do you get the content through a process pipeline where everybody says, "Yup, that's it. Yep, that's a good stuff. That works." It's like is an interesting thing. I just a little tidbit, which is really really interesting. Standards bodies have adopted accessibility requirements, which is a really good thing. So it's like, how can a blind person read or consume a standard? Besides it being read to him, or them, actually not him, her, them, when it's an image. So how do you do that? So and this is not only for a blind person. You can, it's like it's any, it's like basically any form. How can you make standards work more accessible for people with disabilities is a really interesting challenge. All the standards bodies, SDOs, are adopting these kind of like accessibility requirements for their standards. However, they assume that both the editors of a standard and the authors are experts in that area. I mean, not only is that the accessibility requirements are not, uniform across all the different SDOs, there's also no support for editors and authors to actually do it right. Which means it's like you're being asked to write Braille without, or to create something in Braille when you have no idea what Braille is or how it works or anything like
It's
that.
probably easier to dictate it, so that you have like an audio version of it for the people that can't see, but but if you can hear, it's a whole
but
nother
there is
story.
no support, right? So it's mandated by SDOs, so standard development organizations. But there is no institutional support for that. So that's a fun discussions we have right now. Yes, Benjamin, that is indeed true. That's like the W3C was one of the first to do that, and that's going to be adopted. And I think it's really important, right? It's really important. But having said that, it is without the right support, right? It's like asking a blind man or blind person to identify color, right? It's like there is no foundational knowledge how to do that the right way, right? And therefore by editors and authors, like, do you know? I don't.
So what would they do? Would they make like a hard version of it and send it to people?
No. So what it means is there needs to be an explanatory, for example, for images, right? So someone else can read it to a blind person, right? But how do you describe an image?
Like
right. So therefore
like an architecture diagram or something, right?
Exactly. So there's what you have with like in images, you see that with like, in the different editors, there's alt text. So that alt text allows you to describe the image. But how do you do that for a blind person? It's like, you go like, there's a circle, it's like the overall diagram is called, it's called like a BPI architecture. The top layer is represented as a box, with three smaller box labeled X, with three smaller boxes in it labeled XYZ, right? That's the type of stuff that you need, right? And then the point is, how do you do that most effectively, right? What's the standard? How to do that? How do you do that in such a way that it's not confusing for you know, disabled people, right? So there is
I mean,
no support.
it's like even if we're talking about baseline, it's like confusing already, you know.
Yes, exactly. It's
And then you
like
have to then translate that in an accessibility form. It's
yeah,
tough.
it's like playing blind chess against 40 people at the same time. The great Grandmaster Naidov did it, and actually won most of those matches. But he was so confused he couldn't do anything for like 2 days afterwards. Literally, it's true story. Anyway, the point is that, and that's a discussion point. Is like, you know, SDOs need to provide, or should not need to, should provide resources that help editors and authors to do that, right? Experts that can do this effectively and efficiently and can work with the editors and authors and help them do that, right? Right now it's like, oh, just write it any way you want it. And so it's not very helpful. So having discussions with like Oasis and BEA and, you know, around that. So I find that is actually the most interesting aspect of the whole process discussions, because otherwise it's just, you know, discussing what label we put on an arrow to explain how the process works. So which is fascinating. But anyway, I'm like rambling on. I don't want to derail this. This is about Daniel, but I just thought I would share that because it's an interesting tidbit that shows you about what people are concerned about, what they're discussing, and what actual issues are, and relevant ones that you might
that
not
was the
think
question,
about.
right? Because I was saying that you know, I had just left off basically on the creation of the standards group, right? So, you know, that's kind of bringing me in a little bit as to what some of the thinking is going on.
So with
And
some
just
of
to
the
add to
thinking,
that, go ahead.
I was going to say, so with some of the thinking, you know, what's some of the cool stuff that Envision is working on right now? You know, with Baseline as well as any other ripple, you know, effect projects that, you know, Baseline might have spawned.
Well, we're not working on any Ripple projects. That's a joke. There's a pun on what you just said.
No XRP stuff. I mean, yeah,
Um,
lowercase r, ripple effects.
yeah. No, it's a, you know, thanks for asking. Yeah, we're involved in a lot of different areas within the Web3 space right now. You know, we are for example, myself, and I see Ben over here on this call as well, Ben Bakari. So we're both the co-chairs of the EEA tokenization group, and you know, we have a really interesting kind of agenda scheduled out for the next couple months, I want to say. So for example, what we're doing is it's kind of like education, but work at the same time. So over the next couple months, we're putting on a webinar series that focus around kind of you can loosely say, like, I'm not gonna coin the phrase over here, but I'm kind of calling this kind of like the pillars of tokenization, in a way, where the first webinar, and this is in no specific order, it's not on purpose, but the first webinar is around the legal regulatory framework of tokens. The second one is around the technical framework of tokens. The third one is around token economics. Fourth one is around an ethical framework. And then the next couple webinars after that are going to be kind of like a use case study, taking a look at these 4 different pillars and how they apply to different types of use cases out there, whether it's you know, environmental cases, real estate cases, royalty cases, security, so on and so forth. So you know, excited about that. I think tokenization is super hot. that's really all that we're doing right now, is a lot of use cases within tokenization. A lot of familiar faces here. So Envision is also working together with the tree trunk team and Consensus to put together treetrunk.io. Some of the relevant kind of like, I won't say directly the work from Baseline correlates with that, but I think that the work with the zero knowledge proofs and the development of the circuits is some interesting points right there that a couple of our C++ developers are helping out with the zero knowledge proof circuits. Of course, it's always great to have the design there from Dr. Andreas Freund and some of the work over there with regards to the circuits. We have a number of circuits that we're creating. A couple of them are finished. We still have a lot more to tackle as the weeks go on. And then, we're also doing a lot of work in the sustainability space. So we're currently building an open source platform that's really been adopted by just like, I want to say, to my knowledge, at least 20 different organizations. So this is a tokenization platform that mints either fungible tokens or non-fungible tokens based on specific policies. And within the ESG space, the way that you create offsets or you create emissions, either a GHG policy or that's on the emission side, or creating offsets. Then there's other types of policies, like from the popular ones like Gold Standard and Vera. So there needs to be a way to meet all those requirements and then create the token. So that's, kind of a long-winded answer, some of the things that we're currently up to right now.
Cool.
Hey everybody! Sorry I was late. I didn't bring the music, so
Doesn't feel the same without the music.
I can do it now.
That's what it was.
We got to get that teed up somehow on some kind of a thing. Do you guys know that one time Baseline Protocol ever got a takedown warning from YouTube was we were playing the Magic Bus song a lot, right? And but just short segments of it, just because that was kind of our catchphrase in the beginning, the Magic Bus, and it's the Who's song, right? If you don't know the Magic Bus song by the Who, and one day I forgot to turn off kill the stream. And so so basically we serenaded YouTube for like 3 hours, maybe 6 hours with the full length version of the Who's proprietary song.
So they caught you with that copyright.
Well, yeah, as they should have. So, but because it was the length that we were playing was appropriate, which was like less than 15 seconds or whatever it was. But yeah, 6 hours is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
You mean
for what it's worth, I did actually get. I reached out to the band of that song, and they did give us permission to use it. So.
Cool.
So you played that 15-second snippet for 6 hours, like on repeat.
Yeah,
just a loop.
It just was looped. Yeah.
I think you probably hold the world record of consecutively playing the Magic Bus, the Who song, that Who song,
this one
in a row.
Yeah, Magic
So
Bus.
this for 6 hours. This.
So I missed hearing about the Magic Bus because that was a great way to describe it. I know. I see it in the back.
TJ Chmielewski painted that on, or drew it on my wall the day I think he got COVID, and it was the day before the walls came down. And I don't know why I didn't get COVID that day. And I think he came down with COVID. He said that he got sick the very next day, and then I I proceeded to color it in. TJ Chmielewski, everybody, a great designer.
And I believe stickers were made from it, correct?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, there are.
And handed out in Amsterdam for anybody.
that's
who
right.
came.
Bingo.
I want a sticker.
In case anybody wants to know, this is what they were.
Yeah. No one gave me a sticker.
No one gave me a sticker either.
I feel like really overlooked and rejected right now.
Well,
I'm getting-
I've got
I'm
a
getting
small
FOMO
stack
over
of
here.
them.
Yeah, I've got
a small,
quite a few as well.
I've got a small.
Can we
stack of them.
NFT them? And then
I think
like
you can buy them
It'll
on
cost
the
you $400
Redbubble.
bucks.
I'll sell a couple to you. $30 a pop.
It's gonna cost- it's gonna cost
with
you
the new
$400
NFT
to
dApp.
mint it.
You see, this is how markets are created right here. You're watching it live.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
generation of FOMO in real time.
Yeah, I've got a small stack of these, so if anybody wants one, I don't have a wobbly leg on a table that I need to prop up. So yeah,
Daniel, I have another question for you.
Sure.
We talked the other day about where the baseline protocol is now in regards to the standard being fully written, but some more foundational steps being done in the community with that roadmap that I shared with you and some of the work going on in the core devs and outreach teams. So I wanted to ask your thoughts on that. I think you're well aware on how slowly standards bodies move. So I just wanted to see what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about, what Andreas was saying with regards to accessibility is just like one of the many things that makes standards kind of slow to move. It's never easy in an open source community to be able to come up with a standard that really fits everybody, because things that are going to be made are going to have to then be taken by every participating party, and then thereafter, so it's like never easy, and I give a lot of credit to the folks that are still banging away at it, because like I can't say it enough that it's it's a dirty job, but someone has to do it. And I think that standards in general are important, because it's like when we're talking about emerging technology or just any technology, it's like nobody wants to be the one from a adoption perspective to just kind of like try things out. There are some, right? Those are kind of like the riskier companies in the world that have maybe a higher risk tolerance. But when something has gone through a standard, it makes it a little bit more tolerable or a little bit less risk averse to be able to adopt it. Now, with that said, it's like not all standards are created equally, and the thing that we were talking about offline, it's like, well, what makes one standard better than the other, and what makes the standard a standard, and why are we
there's
going
de facto
to be okay?
Standards, right? That's what
And then
most of
de
the open
facto
source
standards. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what the open source play normally is, right? Is
Mhm.
I'm gonna open source something. A lot of companies, I mean my old companies included, would open source partly as a marketing strategy to say, and especially for like Chinese firms that would that were very concerned about proprietary buying proprietary tech from say a U.S. firm. You open source it, and somehow that gives it a stamp of safety. Of course,
Well, you want to
nobody
open
remembers
source
that you can compile naughty things into the compile. It could be open source, but the runtime might be dangerous depending on who compiled it and what they put in it.
Right. Well, companies or, the technology leaders at organizations want to be able to audit code and want to be able to make sure that everything is copacetic, and, that there's no known vulnerabilities for them to be able to adopt it. In fact, I remember talking to an organization, it was about a year ago, where they were going through, I'm not going to mention any names, but they were going through different, Web3 protocols, blockchain protocols, and they, canceled out the ones that weren't open sourced, just for that fact that they weren't open source. So, it's like it's a big thing. But what we're talking about here is there's a difference between open sourcing something and calling something a standard, because anything could be open sourced, but not everything could call itself. Well, I guess anything could call itself a standard, but not everything could be a standard that stands, that kind of like holds true to a standard. And I think that's what you were saying earlier, that there's like standard organizations out there that are, kind of approved, right? It's like a bunch of people can get together and say that this is a standard. But I think that, it's important to have a good governing body behind that standard.
Daniel, why don't you tell a little bit about the work that you guys did around the Guardian with adoption, in terms of like standards and adopting standards and moving that forward, because that's relevant also for Baseline, because it's about DITs and VCs and so forth, which is starting to really be adopted more broadly across various projects.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier when Mark was asking what kind of things have we been doing. So what's interesting about the Guardian project, right? It's kind of like the problem statement, right? I got to start with the problem statement, and then we'll get into the DIDs and VCs, because that's really the answer to the problem statement. Right? The problem statement is carbon offsets are nothing new. They've been around for a very long time. It's just that when an offset is created and it meets a specific policy, there's, congratulations, you got your offset. It's like a PDF that's like a certificate. So when there's a buyer of that offset, when someone wants to go and spend money on that because they want to offset their emissions, it's very difficult to be able to rate the quality of that offset. You can't audit it or anything like that. So part of what the Guardian does is what we call is the trust chain. The trust chain is a chain of, just like Andreas said, DID verifiable credentials that are all wrapped up in a verifiable presentation that allow you to see every single thing that happens along the entire track of it. And I think that the whole point of the standards part is when we were looking at what's the best way that we can go ahead and show this sort of information, we want to make sure that we use kind of like a universally adopted standard that had credibility behind it. So obviously the W3C is like the first place to go look at, and that's where we adopted the W3C standard for the DIDs, the VCs, and the VPs.
Has that standard been, I read something a while back to where you had a lot of the large players that were really more into the data-driven economy were trying to stymie the advancement of the W3C VC standards, primarily because they felt as though that self-sovereignty aspect was going to be a disruptor to their business model.
It was not so much the VCs, it is more the DIDs, right? So where the DID standard is stuck because Mozilla and Google and so forth, they're taking offense at the fact that that blockchains are used for anchoring those DIDs that are not environmentally friendly. It's a red herring discussion because they are seeing that their business models are going to be fundamentally disrupted, right? You combine DITs and VCs, and you basically can fundamentally disrupt the entire certificate authority market, which is shilling here, which is what the integrated trust network is going to do. when it launches later this year, which is going to be a federated certificate authority formed by some of the largest organizations on this planet. So that they will go in and the ITN will directly compete with the likes of Okta and Google and Facebook as certificate authorities.
Yeah, I mean,
using DITs and VCs, right? Using DITs and VCs and the appropriate software packages wrapped around it, so it's easy for people to use. So
I commonly tell people, I said, if you're looking on an online platform, or whatever, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. They want your data, they want your clicks, they want
correct
all of that.
I don't know. I got no problem with that. I don't know what the new generations are all about. It's like, I'm like, hey, I like my free email, and I like the fact that I've got, that I like the fact that I get ads that are creepily accurate, because that means they're not wasting my time with ads that I have no interest in. Advertising is actually an astoundingly amazing, commercial invention for doing a lot. I don't know. People are annoyed by them today, but it used to be back in the 60s and 70s. It was like a form of entertainment.
I mean, the thought process behind that is like, we like it until we can't do the things that we want to do anymore.
Like what?
I don't know.
What if Google,
Like,
Google shuts you off, right? Everything, like you have been a Google customer forever, right? Everything's on.
It's a game of whack-a-mole, right? I mean, yeah.
It's not so much.
I'm not worried
it's
about
like,
that.
It's
really.
like the why, right? The why is like, well, it's like, if Google shut you off because of your use of something else that is not because of your views, right? Because of your purchasing history over here, because if you purchased something that one organization didn't like, so therefore, but it's like,
yeah,
the data sharing
those are
thing.
cases, sure, but on the other hand, do we really, if you're fully decentralized, you can't shut down Osama bin Laden. I got a problem with that too. You can't have it both ways. You either are decent, you either have controls or you don't have controls, and no controls is anarchy. And I've had a glimpse of Lord of the Flies, and I'm not interested.
It's a very serious trade-off for sure. It's not an easy.
And in fact, I think we have decentralization. I just think that we're missing it. Decentralization is in a world where laziness is your only lock-in, right? Facebook can be MySpace as easily, over time, and probably will be. There is competition. It gets hard. Monopolies occur, and then we break them up, and there's back and forth. But saying, I don't know. I always thought that Ayn Rand was both ghoulish and a terrible writer, so I'm not a libertarian.
Yeah, I think the problem is when you have decentralization without recourse, right?
Sure.
And right. So,
but you do have in commerce, you do have recourse. It's not the government.
That is right.
Donald Trump from Twitter didn't violate his constitutional rights.
No, what exactly? Because it's Twitter. It's a private company. They can kick everybody off, and no one can do anything about it, right? The key here is the recourse, and how do you establish recourse in a world where there's decentralization? Right now, everything that is decentralized, right, which is like, look at the US, right? It's a mess of decentralization because there is not a proper disincentive model that was created around it to ensure that every participant in the ecosystem has residual claimancy, which means has enough at stake that if they behave improperly, right, they will lose that stake and therefore will be severely punished, right? So that's the basic idea of what behind DAOs and what you're seeing emerging in the blockchain space is recourse. Is there going to be a fully decentralized world? No. Is that the fully centralized is also not the right thing? So the answer is going to be in the middle, and it's going to go
It's Star
back
Wars.
and forth a little bit.
Right. It's Empire Rebels, and the funny thing is we all think we're the rebels, but actually we're probably the Empire. Right. And then the next thing gets in power, right? And they're the Empire. Order is good, and a little, but too much order is not good.
Listen, even the bad guys think that they're the good guys.
Right.
All right, Daniel, we have a question for you in the chat. Serena would like to know, how did you get into this space, and what is your favorite thing to work on?
Like in this space or out of this space? What's my favorite thing to work on, in this space or out of this space?
Probably within the space, I'm gonna guess.
I got it. I got it. So how did I get into this space? I don't know. It's a long path. It was a good one for sure. We opened up Envision in 2018. I co-founded it with my business partner. His name is Jason Panzis. And before that, we were doing project management consulting. I had help. It wasn't necessarily a startup, but help bring this company up for about 7 years before that. Where we're doing project management consulting within the Microsoft ecosystem. We're doing a lot of project online implementations, project server implementations, what was happening within that space is all of the software developers were standing up their own Jira environments, and they were standing up their own, version 1 environments and pivotal trackers and all their other project management tool sets out there. What started out as a basic implementation service of Project Online and Project Server ended up going into integration services, where we work pretty much with the Fortune 500 PMOs of the world, and they were asking us to provide integration services to bring in all the time tracking from the Jiras, from the version 1s, and then it went from that to larger systems like, okay, now we have an SAP system and we have people clocking time in there. Can we all, can we bring all the roles, the ERP management and Workday and everything like that, and bring that into the PMO so that we can do proper resource management and whatnot. So that kind of brought me into the world of system integrator. So then, I'll give the credit to Jason Panzis, who was in the speculation side of the blockchain industry. And when we started taking a look at, for example, like what Ethereum was doing from the business side, we said, look, there's definitely a need to be able to do system integration in the protocol side. So again, it's like we don't build IP for ourselves. We help and build IP for other organizations in the space. So like when we came into the space in 2018, we didn't want an app. We didn't want to come, try to build the next blockchain, the next Ethereum, right? The next baseline protocol. But again, helping companies integrate with these sort of protocols and then build applications on top of that. So that's what we've been doing for the past 5 years. The favorite thing to work on within this space is for sure, creating applications is just like that's the best thing in my opinion, because it's like blockchain is by itself, but like you got to be able to have a user interface to be able to interact with it. I think that it's really important to be able to get the common person to be able to interact with these blockchain systems, which is another reason why, for example, in the baseline protocol in the early days, we did the demo with D365, because it's like people needed to be able to see how they were already using systems and using Dynamics 365 as your front end, but you can then, leverage the blockchain networks like Ethereum as the mainnet, by integrating with the baseline protocol to be able to keep things, safely secured and be able to work with your trading partners and business partners, again, from a user experience perspective. I am having fun learning the ZKP side of things. I always find that side of the world really, really, really interesting. It's it's complicated in theory, but the actual code is pretty short. You're talking like not. I'll use John's favorite line. It's about 4 lines of code to be able to get this thing done. But it's like, what can we do that's going to help increase the adoption? It's kind of what I really like. So definitely working on zero knowledge proofs, not for me, but from the developer side, and really seeing what our team is doing is really it's really exciting. Thanks for the question.
Awesome. Thank you. And any other questions from the group for Daniel?
I was late, but was there, Daniel, did you get to talk about, cross multi-party automation at all, and where you see the market for that going for solutions providers? I mean,
yeah, like we spoke spoke a little bit about it at the beginning, kind of like how we got involved, and
no, not in baseline or blockchain or any of that. I'm saying generally multi-party automation, regardless of what technique is used.
I mean, I think multi-party automation is important because it's very difficult to do business by yourself. Most
so what kinds of automation projects are you seeing? Like, where's the sweet spot in the industry now? We're talking about funding an IDC, I think, is a survey, of businesses, not on blockchain, not on even baselining, just on how much are you spending, running orchestration between web services or operations between you and other companies that are automated and not just email and phone calls.
When I hear multi-party, it's just like, it just instantly goes to supply chain work.
Yeah, we buy things from each other. That's kind of the thing we do as companies with each other. Yeah.
But just like my hesitation is there is because companies that are involved in supply chain, it's like clunky, from a technology perspective, it's clunky. So it's like, it's not just like here's the solution, we're just going to go ahead and put this in and your life is that much better. It takes time to be able to implement and
they're not
integrate
the most aggressively tech savvy companies sometimes.
a
People
lot
aren't
of them,
dumb, but
a lot of them
people
still
are busy.
rely on.
Yeah.
Sorry, John, go ahead.
I was just going to say, people aren't dumb, but they're usually busy trying to be smart about something else. And in the case of some of those companies, the people are trying to be smart about their golf game.
It's like our experience with supply chain companies. It's like this, right? So we've talked to small startups, and when I say small startups in supply chain, I'm not talking about like they just launched. I'm talking about like a company like less than 50 employees, like maybe 30 employees, 40 employees, something like that. So for example, I'm thinking one specifically with a buddy of mine who just got a VP of operations position, and it's like in supply chain, the industry I'm talking about over here is cannabis, right? So got a VP of operation cannabis, booming industry, of course, but a lot of these companies that are like 40, employees or something like that, they're just not focused on tech innovation. They're focused on, just like, Excel does it, I'm just going to use Excel. Google Spreadsheets works, I'm just going to use that. And I'm just going to focus on making sales and making connections, making business partnerships with the farms, and upstream, downstream is what they're really focused on. But it comes to a point where their systems do need to be upgraded, because, we're talking about serious inefficiencies that happen over the course of time. from managing people to managing product to managing invoices to managing, agreements and all those things that are all part of the supply chain game. So, I mean, from like a technology perspective, it's full of rigor, but that's the opportunity I think that multi-party workflow automation is really ripe for. It's always been the case, in my opinion.
Yeah, when it comes to supply chain, I had a coworker. We sold supply chain solutions. She used to say that our biggest competitor is pen and paper, and that's really true when it comes to supply chain and logistics. Because a lot of those guys really, that's all they operate on: pen and paper, and maybe if you're lucky, Excel.
Dan, I got a question. How long did it take to grow that beautiful beard there?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. It's actually basically a year to this date, almost.
It looks good.
Thank you.
It's one of the side effects of COVID is it accelerates beard growth.
Yeah, John, it's like we can totally see that in you.
No, with me, it has definitely accelerated aging. I used to have a brown beard. Now it's all white.
It looks good on you, though. It gives you, gives you an even more distinguished look.
It fits. Salt and pepper.
Yeah, I know. This takes a lot of work. This just
gives you gravitas. Gives you much more gravitas.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Daniel. Hope to have you on as many future shows that you'd like to join us on, as well as all of the work groups happening in the Baseline community. And with that, I'm also going to use the rest of our time for some updates from Kyle and team from Provide. So I'll hand over to you, Kyle.
Thanks a lot. We won't take too long. Just a few updates related to Provide and how things are coming together. So the Provide network architecture is currently in the process of being finalized. There's 100 validators that will kick off Epoch 0 in the near future. And the network essentially is going to use a lightweight consensus that leverages some or all of the patterns that we talk about in the EA community projects, or in the L2 project. Andreas is helping spearhead that as well. I think that's it's quite interesting. If you haven't come to one of the sessions, you should come to one. I think it's going to happen. Not the next one is not next Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. So the white paper will soon be updated for Provide Network that outlines that consensus, as well as how the PRVG and PRVD tokens interact in there. Provide is really cool. Provide was allowed a patent. So in 2020, we filed a patent called System and Method for autonomous mapping of enterprise identity. And it was actually allowed by the USPTO. And it just describes sort of a way to automatically resolve counterparties using, sort of in the baseline context, and leveraging, a handful of the components, microservices that you may find in the Provide stack, ident, fault, in-chain, baseline, privacy in the baseline service. What else? PRVD Oasis, that commercial focused project, will have the founding PGB for that will be finalized on June the 6th. And Shuttle will launch a few weeks after that. So I think we're targeting June 30th for that. So it's all finally coming together with regards to PRVD Oasis. A handful of some really notable Web3 organizations have also come forward for that, and so that's super exciting. And I think we do still have a few surprises that are sort of in store for the PRVD Oasis release, including a few what I would consider to be very disruptive open source projects that are going to be released. At least one in particular, with regards to a certain system of record that currently has no open source coverage, but we will be releasing like a middleware, sort of a connector integration for the system of record. So super excited to do that. I think that might be it. Super exciting though. Keep building. Dan, great to see you.
Yeah, awesome to see you too.
We'll have to catch up.
Sure. Hit me
Hey,
up.
oh, and so one yeah, I will. So one last thing, the patent is meant to really enrich the PRVD Oasis portfolio. It's not really, so we're not looking to like troll around with it. It's a software patent. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool. So check it out. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All righty, we have a few minutes left. Any other topics from the group?
I put the link in the Zoom chat here. Hold on. There, if you want it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for letting us hop on.
Of course.
Oh, just
All right.
a quick take on Kyle and L2. Actually, we're the work that was done on the baseline standard seems to be informing initial work on L2 interop. So that's a nice little wink towards the work that already has been done. So that I think that just shows that what has been done with baseline. Also, another thing that came up in the L2 call and is going to be a new work item are wallets and account interfaces. So integrating identity into digital asset wallets and also EDDSA keys for ZK rollups or zero knowledge proof required type of keys was also very high on the agenda, and we have 2 baseline grants for that and 1 proposal, so that it's the whole concept of having universal identifiers across different L2s and blockchains, aka DIDs, is a big one.
And we won't mention which services implement that currently, Andreas, once again.
Custodially.
Non-custodially.
Non-custodially too.
Yes. No, but L2 is where it's at. It's good. It's a good time.
All righty. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us this week. And we will see everybody next week on our next baseline show.
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thanks everyone for having me.
Thank you,
Talk to
everybody.
everyone soon. Bye.
Thanks,
Cheers.
guys.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Thank you.